In our last video, we covered what cloud providers are responsible for: the infrastructure, the physical security, the hardware, essentially everything that makes the cloud work at the foundational level. They handle security of the cloud. But here's the reality: just because you're in the cloud doesn't mean security is someone else's problem. There's an entire category of responsibilities that remain firmly in your hands. And misunderstanding this is one of the most common causes of cloud security incidents. Today, we're exploring consumer responsibility, what you are responsible for when you use cloud services, regardless of whether you're on AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, or any other platform. This is security in the cloud, and it's your job. Let's dive in. Consumer responsibility in cloud computing follows one fundamental rule: you are responsible for everything you control. The cloud provider gives you infrastructure, platforms, or applications. But how you configure them, what you put in them, who you give access to, and how you use them, that's entirely on you. Think of it like renting an apartment. The landlord is responsible for the building structure, plumbing, and electrical systems. But you're responsible for locking your door, not leaving valuables visible through the window, and not giving your key to people you don't trust. The landlord gave you a secure building. Making your apartment secure within it is your job. In cloud computing, the same principle applies. The provider gives you secure infrastructure. Using it securely is your responsibility. And just like with that apartment, if something goes wrong because of your choices, you can't blame the landlord. So what exactly are those responsibilities? Let's break it down by the critical areas you need to manage. First and foremost, your data is your responsibility, always. In every cloud service model, this means data classification, understanding what data you have, how sensitive it is, and what regulations apply to it. The cloud provider doesn't know whether that database contains customer credit cards, health records, or public information. You need to classify it and treat it accordingly. Encryption decisions are yours. Most cloud providers offer encryption options: encryption at rest, encryption in transit, client-side encryption, server-side encryption. But choosing whether to encrypt, what to encrypt, and managing encryption keys, that's your responsibility. The provider gives you the tools, you decide how to use them. Data retention and deletion are customer responsibilities. How long do you keep data? When do you delete it? The provider will store your data forever if you keep paying the bills. Compliance with data retention regulations is your problem to solve, and critically, data access controls are yours to manage. The provider gives you granular permission systems, but deciding who can read, write, modify, or delete data, that's your responsibility. If you misconfigure permissions and accidentally make your S3 bucket public, exposing millions of customer records, the provider isn't at fault. You had the controls, you configured them incorrectly. Backup and disaster recovery for your data, also your responsibility. Providers offer backup services and tools, but actually creating backups, testing restores, and having a recovery plan, that's on you. Who has access to your cloud resources is entirely your responsibility. User management starts with you. Creating accounts, disabling accounts when people leave, managing the life cycle of identities, this is customer managed. The provider gives you an IAM system. You're responsible for using it properly. Authentication requirements are your choice. Will you enforce multi-factor authentication? How strong must passwords be? Can API keys be used? Or do you require more secure authentication methods? The provider offers the capabilities, you set the policies. Authorization. What users can actually do once authenticated is your responsibility. Implementing least privilege. Ensuring people only have access to what they need for their job. Regularly auditing permissions, all customer responsibilities. Service account management falls to you as well. Those automated systems that need access to your cloud resources. You create their credentials, manage their permissions, rotate their keys, and monitor their usage. And here's something many organizations miss: privileged access management. Who gets administrative access to your cloud environment? How is that access monitored? When does it get revoked? These are critical security decisions that only you can make. How you configure cloud resources is fundamentally a customer responsibility, and misconfiguration is the leading cause of cloud security incidents. Network configuration is yours to manage. Which ports are open? What traffic is allowed between resources? How is network segmentation implemented? The provider gives you virtual networks, security groups, and firewalls. Configuring them correctly is your job. Resource configuration matters enormously. Default settings often aren't secure enough for production use. Hardening instances, changing default passwords, disabling unnecessary services, implementing proper logging. These are actions you must take. Security tool deployment is your responsibility. Want a web application firewall, an intrusion detection system, vulnerability scanning? The provider offers these as services, but you have to actually enable and configure them. They're not on by default. Patch management responsibility varies by service model. In IaaS, you're responsible for patching your operating systems and applications. In PaaS, the provider patches the platform, but you're still responsible for keeping your application dependencies updated. Even in SaaS, you're often responsible for updating integrations and add-ons, and monitoring and alerting configuration is entirely yours. What metrics do you track? What thresholds trigger alerts? Who gets notified? The provider collects the data, but you define what's important and what requires action. If you're running applications in the cloud, application security is your responsibility. Secure coding practices, vulnerability management, security testing, these are all customer responsibilities. The provider gives you secure infrastructure to run your code on, but the security of the code itself is your problem. SQL injection, cross-site scripting, authentication bypasses, these are application layer issues you must prevent. Third-party dependencies and library management fall to you. That open-source library you're using with known vulnerabilities, the provider didn't choose it, you did. Keeping dependencies updated and secure is your responsibility. Compliance with regulations is perhaps the most misunderstood area. Cloud providers can be compliant. They can achieve HIPAA, PCI DSS, GDPR, or other certifications at the infrastructure level. But whether your use of their services complies with these regulations is entirely your responsibility. The provider gives you compliant infrastructure and tools. Configuring them to meet your specific compliance requirements, documenting your compliance posture, undergoing audits, that's all on you. Consumer responsibility in cloud computing comes down to this. You're responsible for what you put in the cloud, who has access to it, how you configure it, and how you use it. The shared responsibility model is a partnership. The provider handles the infrastructure. You handle everything you build on top of it. Understanding where that line is drawn and fulfilling your responsibilities is the difference between secure cloud adoption and becoming the next data breach headline. And remember, in the cloud, the provider secures the platform, but you secure what you build. See you in the next one.